Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I'm your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones.
Welcome to Transformative Principal. Here we are, episode 497. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. Today we have as our guest Eric Makelky, who's been on the show before, but we're going to introduce something a little bit different. Eric is actually going to be taking over the Transformative Principal podcast this year. I've recorded a bunch of episodes already, so you'll still hear my voice over the next year, but Eric is going to be interviewing people to help him because he recently took over a position as principal of a high school in eastern Wyoming, which is different from where he was before. So we're going to run the first podcast of each month is basically going to be a coaching call between me and Eric, and probably about 30 minutes. And we're going to jump on the call. We're going to hit record, and then we're just going to publish it and see how things go. And then the other times you're going to get to hear him as he's leading a new school, start learning about some of the things that he wants to do. He's an experienced principal, so it's not his first rodeo, and he will have the opportunity to ask questions to help him get better. One of the things that I've said for years is that I do this podcast so that I can learn how to be better myself, and I take advantage of relationships and networks to learn how to do that, and then I just share that with you. So if you go back and listen to all these previous 496 episodes, you get to hear my educational philosophy change and grow and develop and become more nuanced. And you get to hear stupid questions that I've asked that I look back down and think, oh, what was I thinking? It's just crazy. So, Eric, I'm going to turn it on you here. What are you thinking about this kind of new assignment, this new opportunity to do the podcast specifically, and then also lead this new school? And how do you think doing the podcast is going to help with that?
Yeah, thanks, Jethro. I knew this was going to be something that I needed help with, just being in a new position, a new district, a new community. But after being a couple of weeks in, I really know I need it. When you make a change like that, you've got a lot to learn, and you got to be intentional about what you're doing. But there's already been days I've gone home, even before students and staff showed up, where I felt like a first year teacher, like, man, I need help. So I'm excited to use this as an opportunity for you and I to have our monthly coaching, and talk about some of those successes and challenges that we're working through in a new position, but also to build some podcast episodes where we have experts with those topics that can say, hey, coming in new, when you're looking at this, here's some strategies to use. So I think it's going to be awesome. It's really going to help me. And I know with turnover in education being what it is these days, it's not just teachers. There's a lot of new administrators, a lot of administrators changing roles. And I think it's going to be a pretty popular topic that, listeners are going to be able to hop on and listen to some specific things that they feel like will help them with those same challenges.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's really amazing how you can meet people who recognize the challenges that you're facing and are experiencing them as well. And then it's a really cool experience when they can talk to you and say, hey, this was exactly what I needed help with. In fact, I just got an email from Melissa Sherman, who's been on the podcast, and she had somebody else recommend a book to her, the Designing for Belonging by Susie Wise, who I had on the podcast a few weeks ago. And then she emailed me and said, hey, I really appreciate it because I heard your interview with her. I realized somebody had recommended that book to me. So I went back and read it and then did a whole PD session with my teachers after they came back around that topic. And it was just like really nice. And so you'll start to hear those things as well. And what's cool is that you always feel alone, right? When you have these challenges. And the reality is you're not. You've got so many people who are experiencing something similar. But as a leader, you just feel alone and you feel like nobody else can understand or gets it. How do you relate to that in this situation. Do you see that yet? Is that something that you are looking forward to not having to feel alone, or what do you think about that?
No, I'm definitely feeling it. And I think, especially if you're an administrator in a small district, you're the only administrator at that level. There's one high school principal in the district. And so people are always great. And the people here in my new community district are very helpful. But then when things hit the level of, well, that's a high school issue, it's kind of like, well, good luck. That's kind of, something that only you can change, fix, improve. And so it's easy to feel that way. It's like, man, who else can I even reach out to? But you just got to remember it's 2022. You're not having to send faxes or telegrams to get help. Like, you can go find resources, and there's thousands of people in your same position dealing with the same challenges, and learn from them instead of recreating the wheel. So yeah, I'm already feeling that for sure. I know even in bigger districts, there might be 4 junior high principals, but it's like, well, at our school, this is a unique thing that only we deal with. And the truth is, there's schools all over the country that deal with the same stuff. Kids are kids, parents are parents, teachers are teachers. And we just got to remember, like, you just got to reach out. You got to go find some help.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of reaching out, people can reach out to you. I haven't told you, but I'm setting you up an email address, eric@transformativeprincipal.com, so that people can reach out and send you ideas, suggestions, what have you, guest suggestions, whatever the case may be, because I want people to be able to connect with you and say, here's what I'm dealing with. Now, everybody loves a new email address, right? And so Eric@Transformative Principal, that will be the place where people can get a hold of you. And then you are not very big on social media, is that right?
I'm not. I do have Twitter, and as soon as you brought this up, I'm like, I got to pull up my account so I remember what it is, because I don't want to say it wrong. But yeah, let me pull that up. I'm not an active user. Honestly, I kind of use it to creep. Like, I don't post and create content and stuff, but I'll use it to find things or follow some different chats.
Yeah. Well, that is called lurking, and that's totally fine too. Yep. And you can follow him on Twitter @Makelky, EMAKELKY. I was ready for this. So, and
even better than following me, tweet at me.
That's right.
There won't be a lot of new content, but I can get on there and be a little more active, Jethro.
Yes. Yep. So I think that'll be good, and I think you'll have some good interactions as you relate to people and connect with them online as well. And there's quite a following of people online, and I like going through and looking at who mentions my podcast but not mentioning me, because that's kind of cool. So so anyway, let's talk about some of the things that you think you're going to need help and support with as a new principal. So basically the topics that you would like to be thinking about and planning about for podcast episodes, but then also just the challenges that you're going to face.
Yeah. A big one that I think is true anytime you make a move to a new community as a building leader is trying to match your expectations with the culture that's already in place. Because I know that when you come in new, there's already kind of that feeling of, oh, here comes an outside person to help, manage a school, educate our kids, have expectations for staff, and making sure that, you got to be respectful of and aware of the culture in the community. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it has to be the way it's always been, whether it's academics or attendance or activities or instruction. Like, we can raise the bar, but trying to do it in a way that people feel like you're still understanding of their culture and the way things have been. Because I know that can create a lot of challenges and get off to the wrong foot coming in as a new building administrator is like, who's this guy coming from wherever trying to change everything. So
Yeah.
I know that's a big one. And it's a topic, I'm going to reach out and interview. It's probably more than one expert on, because when you come in new, you got to have some things in place before you even know the background, expectations, the culture of the community. You can't wait 2 years and say, well, now that I know how things are valued here, we're going to make changes. That's not effective. So how can you match up your expectations as the building principal from day one with staff and with students and with families in a positive way? I know that that's going to be a challenge, and I knew that coming in. I think that'd be the same anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. That's a super exciting question to tackle. I have so many thoughts, but that's not what this call's about. So what other topics do you have?
I think one that I knew was going to be an obstacle and a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity, is when you're coming in as a new administrator, how are you being intentional with your new teachers? I know a lot of places, or everywhere, it's probably safe to assume there's been a lot of turnover, a lot of staff leaving or changing positions. And it's felt different being a new administrator and not having things in place for the new staff. But like our certified staff at the building level, I think we have 7 new certified teachers, plus a new secretary and a new assistant principal AD. And it's like, wow, that's a huge slice of the pie. If you're looking at our whole staff is brand new, and I'm brand new. So how can you approach that coming in new yourself without things in place? Whether it's formal mentorships or informal things, just making sure that your new staff has a sense of what's expected of them. They're welcomed. They know, what good instruction looks like. What's important, what should be a priority. That I think is just more challenging when you're new as the principal. It's like, man, I didn't know where to start with that, other than just reach out, welcome, glad you're here. But that's not what's going to retain quality staff, which right now is the big tug of war we're all fighting over.
Yep, for sure. So I'm hearing retaining and attracting staff as well in there. And are you talking about your teachers new to you, or rookie teachers in their first year teaching, or both?
Both.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. So just want to make sure I clarified that. Good.
Yeah.
So that'll be a big topic, a good thing. And I think that this is a question that we need to be constantly asking, of how to improve retention and recruitment of teachers, because we've known there's going to be a teacher shortage for years, and all COVID did was speed that up and made more people leave. And, it's just a reality that we have to live with, and we've got to find a way to go through it and do it better. So what's another topic that you're thinking of?
Building trust with families. So coming in new, you have a lot of parents that reach out, which I love when they call, they email, or they just come in. Hey, just so you know, here's kind of the history of things that have gone on. And, those are things that you weren't even here. You don't know why things happen. You just hear part of the story. But when you're coming in new, I think parents and families and community members are kind of sitting back seeing like, all right, how's this new administrator operating? How are things going? And coming in new, how can you start being positive and proactive with communication, and ultimately building trust with people outside of the building, starting with families?
Yeah, very exciting. So those are 3 pretty big topics, but they all seem to have like a sense of urgency to them, that you've got to start figuring some of this stuff out pretty quick. Before we move on, let's hear from our sponsors. So let's look at the end of the year. At the end of this year, what will need to happen to make it a successful year? how will you know that you've done what you needed? What's your big goal for this year?
I've changed it more than 5 times. Because when you walk in, you're kind of idealistic and you're like, all right, here's the goal. Here's how we're going to measure success, define success. Here's our criteria. And then as you kind of start to pull the curtains back and see more of, current reality, it's like, all right, we got to be realistic with our goal. And I've changed, I don't know how many times really, like at the end of the day, what is the priority? Because if everything's important, nothing's important. And so one nice thing, our district here in Converse 2 already has goals and measurable criteria from the district level down to the building level, and those were in place. And so my current goal for the school year, I hope it doesn't change now that school started and I have a little better footing underneath me, is improvement. Our goal is based on those same measurables and where we've been. We want marked improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So from a school leadership perspective or a personal leadership perspective, are there any other goals that you're thinking of that are not like measurable student achievement outcomes, but something else that you would like to say was a success from this year?
Yes. And these are kind of hand in hand, but the big one is defining the culture that we want at our school.
Mm-hmm.
Like many schools, the culture is kind of up and down based on new hires or retirements, and things are up, things are down, but starting day one with staff, like defining this is the culture that we want in our school. And then ultimately what that's going to do, and my personal goal that you and I have talked about how this is difficult to measure, with numbers and spreadsheets, but building trust with staff. And I think if they feel like this is the vision, this is the type of school we want for us as adults, but ultimately for kids to show up and learn and be safe every day, that'll go a long ways to, okay, this new administrator, is making things clear. We understand expectations. We know why this is important. Hopefully there's some things we can quit doing that have always been done that aren't tied to the priority. Because I know that's a great way with staff. We're always asking them to do more and add new things, and we got a new program for this, but it's also nice to make a list of, hey, I know we've always done this, but we don't have to. Take it off your list. Don't worry about it. And I know that's something that staff, just like parents and even students, when you come in new, it's like, well, let's wait and see how this new principal does.
Yeah. And I think there's a natural tendency to have that wait and see approach, but the sooner you build that trust, the quicker that wait and see goes away and they start to see, right? Yeah. And that is a really powerful place to be, because then when people trust you, then all kinds of other things can happen in really amazing ways. So that's very exciting. So we're gonna do this each month. We're gonna talk and share the things that you're dealing with and struggling with, and then we're gonna put it out on the podcast. And then you're gonna interview people to help you with those things as well. And so for each session, I'll recommend people for you to interview that I know of. You'll find people that you through your lurking on Twitter or whatever, you find other people, and that'll be great. And then if you're listening to this, we also want you to let us know who you think you should interview, who's got some good insight on these things as well. So feel free to reach out. Again, Makelky on Twitter, Eric at transformativeprincipal.com, Jethro at transformativeprincipal.com. Let us know, and we'll make these things happen. One of the things that I'm really excited about is seeing your growth over the course of this year and checking back in on these goals that you've set and seeing what is working well, what is not realistic, what is, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed optimism, and what is the stark reality of what you have to deal with day to day as a principal. And it's easy to get fired up and excited about things at certain times of the year, and then really hard sometimes to put those things into practice. So I'm looking forward to this journey with you. I think it's going to be awesome. Any parting words before we sign off?
I think this was a great idea, and I'm really appreciative of you being willing to let me, kind of highlight like these are some of the challenges coming in new, and I'm really hopeful that there's listeners out there that are going to benefit from that. And that, it can be uncomfortable. I'm sure it will be for me at times, just being honest, being vulnerable, like, man, I'm really struggling with this, or this is what we're working on. But it's going to be exciting to look back on, like you said, at the end of the school year, how much I've improved and learned and grown. So just want to say thanks for the opportunity. I'm really excited about it, Jethro.
Cool. We don't know how it's going to go, actually. And we may get 2 months into it and say, we're not doing this anymore. And I'm giving us permission right now to change our minds. But overall, thinking about this as a year-long process and being able to have a record of your growth and development over the course of the year, I think is going to be really eye-opening for people and insightful. And the reason why I asked you, and I think this is really important to say out loud also, is that you have shown in the mastermind your willingness to be vulnerable and your willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers. And to be honest, that's really exciting. It's exciting to hear people who are real about what they're dealing with and not, hiding the challenges that they face in the shadows. And, you are a very authentic person and willing to put yourself out there. It's going to be a little different audience. Your teachers may be listening to this and may say, oh, Eric said this in the podcast and now he's doing this. Like, they'll call you out for sure. and that'll be exciting too, because I know you want to be an authentic leader, and you've shown that to me time and time again. And I hope that this is a great opportunity for that to happen. Yeah.
I told our staff the first in-service day, the truth is I can tell you whatever I want, but until I show you, there's not a lot of weight to it. So
that's right.
It's good accountability. I welcome it. I think it'll be a positive.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, this will be a fun experiment. I'm excited for it. And I look forward to everybody joining in and listening. And hopefully these podcast episodes that you record and that we record together will be beneficial and impactful to people's lives.
Awesome. Thanks, Jethro.
Thank you.